to become who we want to be as individuals. And at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast, episode 50. My name is Jon, joined by my co-host Mark, and football is back.
No more right. Football's back on
no
the 50th episode.
Blues. No more June blues. No more can't figure out what the hell we want to talk about. We are back with a loaded episode. Lots of shit to talk about. But let's get two things out of the way first. So first of all, we have a Discord that we launched. I think we've had like some coming soon on the end credit banners. We finally got them. Link is in the Discord. Join up, talk about football, hang out with us. We're going to be doing a lot of fun shit in there. And probably doing some like exclusive stuff for the people that, have been engaging with our content and been hanging out a lot. It's because we really appreciate that. And we want to make sure that we're staying connected with those people and getting feedback on how to improve the show. Second thing is that in a matter of a few weeks, we will be redesigning and relaunching our entire merch store. So also be on the lookout for that. I know we've kind of been talking about it, but, getting some business done, having a good conversation with the people that we've been working with for it. And, in the next few weeks, that will be totally relaunched. New designs, the entire website will get a makeover, and we're going to be printing on much higher quality stuff. So, feel a little bit more like, designer lifestyle brand, stuff you'll take some pride wearing in. So,
yeah, it's going to be cool stuff. It's going to be more team specific. And so any team that you root for, good chance that we'll have design coming out for that. And I'm excited about it. They're Jon and I both think they're sweet. We'll let everyone else decide once they come out, but just a few weeks away.
Yeah, so there's a lot to get into. Obviously, today is going to be the NFC East preview, which we have a lot of film, a lot of stuff that we want to break down there. But before we even get into that, because of the fact that training camp's underway and we got all this crazy shit going on, we actually got a lot of news topics to cover as well. So first things first, I think like Mark and I are kind of in rant mode here based off of, a TikTok he posted and a conversation.
Football's back, dude. And I got all fired up and I've had plenty of stuff that's been posted or shared. And around this time of year is where speculation's at an all-time high. And listen, all we do in the offseason on this podcast is speculation. But what I hate is speculation that's just absolutely, utterly insane.
It's nonsense to
piss
turn
us
into
off.
Clickbait. Yeah, which don't get me wrong, we're biting 100%. And so you won, but at the same time, I do kind of want to bitch about it for a second. Mark, I think you'll take NFL Top 100 and I'll take Madden ratings. Is that fine?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll start off with the Madden ratings. So my biggest complaint here is my assumption is first of all, it's like this whole phenomenon and they, do it in June, early July for a reason. It's because there's not a whole lot to talk about. So, let's like drop these Madden ratings so that we look cool. So my assumption is that it's some intern that just like looks at Google Analytics trends and like sees how often their names are searched or how high they were drafted. And then that's what they make the ratings. And they're such bullshit. And like, there's so many examples of it where like dudes are getting absolutely screwed on their ratings and they make absolutely no sense because they're not based in football performance whatsoever. They're completely based on how big of a name somebody is. And there's one name I'll bring up now, and I think Mark's going to bring him up for the NFL Top 100. I love Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is awesome. Huge fan of him. The fact that he's getting higher Madden ratings than like the vast majority of the running backs in the leagues because he scored a bunch of 1-yard touchdowns last year, absolutely ridiculous, right? I love Jamal. Great player. Happy when he was a Lion. Happy that he's on the Saints. Stoked about it. Complete nonsense. And it drives me nuts that this is something that not only we as fans take seriously, but NFL players take seriously too. They feel like they got shafted. It's so stupid.
And on top of everything, the game just sucks. I mean, Madden has literally gotten worse and worse each year that they come out with it. It's so terrible. I mean, a couple years ago, I remember buying it, and like within 2 days, I'm like, why did I purchase this game? It's horrible. It's just terrible.
Any
the
game where
gameplay's
you
bad.
have to churn out a new game every year, it's going to be a garbage game. Like, there's just no other way around it. It takes so long to develop a good game.
Yeah. And then to just go off of that, the NFL Top 100 list is currently airing. I always enjoyed watching that the last few years, just seeing, because it is players that are talking about other players, and you respect their opinions for the most part, and they vote. But again, at the end of the day, someone's taking those votes, and I don't think it's an exact science on how they're doing it, because some of the rankings are just laughable at where they're at. I went on a rant. The worst I've seen was Trevor Lawrence was 96th overall. I think he's a top 5 or 6 quarterback in the league. So to have him 96th overall in the top 100 is ridiculous. They had Jamal Williams at 95, which is just laughable. Should not be on the list. He's not even a top 200 player in the league.
And then what really pissed you off, Mark?
Really pissed me off was somehow at 86, Justin Fields.
3-win
Justin Fields, who had, I don't know, 4 or 5 highlight run plays, and that got him 86th. Like, Trevor Lawrence won a playoff game, was down 27-0 against Justin Herbert, who just signed a $200 million contract. And Trevor Lawrence beat him in a playoff game, down 27-0, came back and won, and then almost beat Mahomes, barring a unforced fumble going in to score. And so I just don't know. If you watched football last year, there's just no way, there's no world, there's no universe where Justin Fields is ranked higher this year than Trevor Lawrence was. It's laughable, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, they're only through like the 80s, so they're in the 70s, 60s, 50s.
No matter,
who knows?
No matter which way that you shake it, Trevor Lawrence, in every measurable that you can possibly conceive, is a better quarterback than Justin Fields.
I think he was better on every stat line. Yeah, I think he was better on every stat line aside from rushing yards.
Yeah, right.
I literally think he had a higher completion percentage, more touchdowns, more completions, more yards. Like, in every single category, better quarterback rating. And I think the only thing less interceptions, and I think the only thing was rushing yards. And he's 10 slots higher. So that just, I mean, how can you trust the rest of the list when there's already through the 80s that many laughable errors? It's a joke.
Yeah. I'm honestly curious too, like how high is Amon-Ra St. Brown going to get rated? Because I think he's, I think
it'll be pretty high, but I mean, you never know. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was 88, I believe.
Right.
Which
that feels about right for a rookie.
About right. And again, they claim it's the players themselves that, voted on by the players, and it's like, okay, well, I feel like this isn't right. There's no way the players think Justin Fields better than Trevor Lawrence. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no way. And then another thing that we want to chat about is the Bills curse already manifesting. Now, obviously you had
we've joked about it.
Had the Stephon Diggs drama, and we're like, oh, but now, Hines is not even doing anything football related. The man's hanging out on a jet ski, and somebody hits him on the jet ski, and now he's out for a season, which absolutely sucks for him. I was really excited to see him play for the Bills. I thought that was going to be a great opportunity, given their running back problems that now are even worse. It was
going to be a good fit for them.
Yeah, it was going to be a really good fit. So it sucks that he's out for the season, and it sucks that it wasn't even an injury in training camp. The dude literally got struck by a jet ski. Where the hell did you hear about that other than somebody being cursed?
You know what's crazy, John, is when I saw that post, when you sent it to me, actually, without knowing any details, and I don't think the details are public yet, I can have a very strong guess as to what happened. I don't know if you've been on a lot of jet skis in your life, but a common thing people do is they'll turn the back of the jet ski and they'll splash you. And a lot of times people, risk it, and you get a little too close to them, and they probably slid trying to do that into them and hit them. And because your legs hang off the side of the jet ski, so if you get hit on the knee, you probably bend the knee the wrong way. Or I don't know what damage he did, but that's kind of my guess. That's my guess as to what happened. Yeah.
So that really stinks for him. And I guess obviously these guys are millionaires and grown ass men that are allowed to make their own decisions. Not 3 weeks ago, I was defending the fact that JMO should be allowed to light off fireworks for sure. But I do have to question, I guess, just your tolerance for risk obviously has to be a little bit different when your body is your
Your job,
moneymaker,
your
right?
life,
Like it's literally like keeping your body in healthy and good shape. And don't be wrong, like who am I to tell, a man my age with millions of dollars to spend that he can't hang out in a jet ski? I don't feel like I'm in any position to do that whatsoever. But like if I was in their position, I mean, my dad won't snowboard. He skis. He won't snowboard because, he's a dentist and he needs to use his hands to make money. He won't take that risk, right? So like as a professional athlete, like extreme sports, snowboarding, skiing, jet skis, snowmobiles, all of that shit. Well, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I would be anxious as shit even thinking about the possibility that I could get seriously injured doing one of those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Drew's making a comment right now that given the running back market, maybe he hasn't gotten paid, so he can be more reckless with it. But I guess that's a good argument. Also, a couple new uniforms dropped since last week. We did post a uniform ice video where we're going over some of the new ones that dropped.
It seems like everyone's getting up. Everyone's like, it's kind of just like this common trend where teams just keep trying to top each other, right? Like,
so I think this one was highly anticipated, right? The freaking
been waiting for this, yeah.
So sick. Now, a debate that's kind of sprung up here is: do the Titans or the Texans technically have the claim to the throwback unis? I know that this is the franchise that was previously the Oilers, but shouldn't the city also kind of get claim to the vibes of their old team?
Listen, this debate will go on forever because you've had stuff like with the Baltimore Colts and all that. But I think that the franchise itself keeps the right. That's what I believe. So
I think that's fair too.
Listen, they should go back. They should be the Tennessee Oilers. I mean, the Tennessee Titans is whatever, but like the Oilers I thought was one of the coolest uniforms, one of the coolest name, one of the coolest logos. Yeah. So that I think it sticks with the franchise.
Yeah, it's super, super sweet. And then the not so sweet one, which I would say, we were talking about this before the show started. The Lions did not hit very well on the alternate unis. Mark and I have said this, but the Colts really did not hit. I think these are the ugliest alternate unis that have dropped so far. I mean, the black helmet, they're like claiming that which there's not really a good, zoom in of this picture, but like the material, the fabric that's being used is like unique to the NFL. Cool, man. Like this looks like a college team, like a D2 college
team. It looks like BYU.
Yeah.
It looks exactly like BYU. It's literally BYU with black helmets.
Rough.
John, just do me a favor and just Google, just so people don't know, just Google BYU blue uniforms real quick. And just you guys out there tell me where maybe they might have got this inspiration, because it's just BYU.
Oh, no.
It's literally just BYU.
Oh, no.
So,
no.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, listen, teams that try to do this and mess it up, I just don't know how you mess it up. It is so hard to mess up a uniform that bad.
Just make it look cool.
Just make it look cool. I mean, have somebody with some kind of design skill, with some kind of fashion skill that not necessarily needs to be football knowledgeable, just someone that knows how to make a uniform look good, and hire them to do it.
I think that might be the problem, is that there's people that know too much football making these decisions. And look, I'm not saying that athletes just in general don't have a good sense of fashion, but a lot of the jocks and stuff like that. I remember high school where sweats and athletic shirts was getting rocked most of the time in class on top of it, because that was what was comfortable, but not necessarily fashionable. So those same people are making the uniform decisions. I guess we're, setting ourselves up for failure. We're trying to speed run these topics a little bit so that we can get to the NFC East. But next one
football's back. We got a million topics.
We got so many topics. It's the last time, or the first time, in a long time, where I feel like I'm stressed out to actually fit everything into, an hour and a half, 2 hour long.
And hey, listen, this episode and every episode from here on out through the fall is going to be like this, where we're probably going to miss stuff because there's so much stuff to talk about. I mean, we don't have 4 hours to cover this content, but that's what we love. Football's back.
Football is back. Chargers QB Justin Herbert, for now, is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, signing a 5-year extension worth $262 million. Keep in mind, this starts after the last 2 years that he has remaining on his rookie contract. So in total, he's locked in with the Chargers for the next 7 years with a no trade clause. So if you're a Chargers fan, you are looking at your franchise quarterback for the next 7 years. And honestly, if I was a Chargers fan, I'd be happy about it.
Hey,
He's a stud.
He's a stud, man. He's a stud. People can say what they want. This guy with Kellen Moore as his OC, I think is going to take another step forward. This guy physically I think is the most gifted quarterback in the NFL physically. That's what I know people say Mahomes, but I've seen this dude make throws that I don't think Mahomes can even make. And when we do the episode on this division, I will show the comparisons between some of Mahomes' crazy throws and then some of his, because there's some that I swear to God I've seen him make that I do not think Mahomes could make. And that's
not only that, but man, is that going to be so fun to watch 2 times a year now at a minimum, right? For the next 7 years, right? I mean, that's going to be super sweet. The rivalry that is going to brew between those two is going to be amazing. It already has been, right? I mean, every Chargers KC game the past few years has been pretty entertaining for the most part. So super excited about that. So that's a big contract. And then another big contract update is that Aaron Rodgers actually took a $35 million pay cut in order to increase the amount of cap space that the Jets have to work with. So he's locked in for 2 years with them. And again, he went from $110 million that the Jets owed him to $75 million, opening up a lot of cap space, honestly. I mean, if
you know why, chasing, right, John?
Got a ring chase, right?
No, but do you know why? There's a specific player in mind, Dalvin Cook. They want to go for Dalvin Cook, I think.
You think so?
That's my call. Yeah,
Chase Young too. I mean, get a little bit more edge talent potentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's my call here. You know, it's July 26th at 8:00. I'm calling that this move was obviously to go try to get somebody. So they're in win now fully, right? That's their mode. I think
Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook would be a disgusting combo too. That would be very dangerous. I'm excited about, and honestly, I think this is like also just the spite Green Bay to some degree, right? I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is trying to demonstrate, hey, if you actually got me what I wanted that I was begging for damn near the past decade, it's going to turn into wins. It's going to turn into playoffs.
He's got a chip. He's got a boulder on his shoulder, right? Like he wants to prove people wrong, and Green Bay wants to prove the world wrong. And a guy with that much talent and now a new motivation to go out there and compete and play to try to prove everyone wrong is dangerous. It's like him early in his career when he was trying to prove everybody that said Favre was better than him and all that stuff, and he would never be Brett Favre. Like when he had that chip on his shoulder, he won a damn Super Bowl. So let's see if he does it again.
Yeah, 100%. I don't even know what I have next. In reference to Lawrence, not getting as much credit as Fields. Another thing that's kind of gone under the radar that Mark, you've been talking about pretty much since this trade.
Did a full episode breakdown on this guy. If you haven't seen it, look at it. It's just a few minutes long. A full routes breakdown on why he's going to transform this Jags offense even more than it was last year.
Lawrence's definitely his new best friend, and so this is Zay Jones running this first route here. And then the second route is Calvin Ridley. And what everybody's saying is that this route looks like it's in slow motion versus the route that Calvin Ridley runs.
And Zay Jones, by the way, was like an 800-yard receiver last year. Right. He's very good.
Like, holy shit. That explosiveness is just nuts.
The in and out of his break. Calvin Ridley's probably a top 4 route runner in the NFL. People forget about it because of the suspension last year. And this is preview alert right here into our next week episode, a little fantasy football talk. Calvin Ridley should be I think a first or second round pick in most fantasy football leagues.
Yeah, he was Atlanta's entire offense last.
He's going to be. I promise you this with Trevor Lawrence, with Doug Peterson, he's going to be a top 5 receiver in fantasy football. Barring an injury, he will be. I'm telling you. So you'll hear it next week too. We'll get a big time fantasy football mega episode coming next week, but I'm telling you, like, this guy's going to have a huge year. Huge year.
That was actually the third thing I wanted to mention at the top of the episode. We said it last week, too. We're doing a, blockbuster fantasy football episode. There's going to be so much content related to that. And then the weekend of, we're also probably going to do a mock draft live stream. Make sure you're tuning in for that. The live streams are a lot of fun. We always love seeing people tune in for those. It's fun reacting to people's comments and things like that real time. So definitely make sure you're around for it. And then, so just to make sure we're kind of covering everything, right? So obviously we already talked about Herbie. Cowboys cornerback Diggs to a 5-year, $97 million extension. I believe that makes him the highest paid cornerback in the league now. Dallas loves just signing those X paid X position in the league.
He's a hell of a player, but
that's
a lot for a corner that guesses and gets beat a decent amount too, man. Like I wouldn't call him a lockdown corner. He gets beat a lot.
He's really freaking good. Don't get me wrong, but that is big money for him. I don't know if any quarterback is worth that just because of position value. Obviously, it's a valuable position. I'm not sure if it's one that you're willing to totally break the bank for. I mean, they're gonna have to pay Micah Parsons in a few years, all of that good stuff. So Saquon pretty much signs a better deal than the franchise tag, but not really. It's
I think $1 million or $2 million more.
So it's like $1 million more in incentives, right? So it's like if he hits incentives, he'll make $1 million more than the franchise tag. And then on top of it, though, you're swapping out that guaranteed money, right? A franchise tag, every single dollar that you earn from it is guaranteed. I think this contract's only like $2 or $3 million guaranteed. Right. Which again, like isn't a huge deal. I mean, Saquon has had injury issues. He's had a few other issues. Right. So he actually is setting himself up to make less here potentially if he doesn't have like a blockbuster.
He's betting on himself though, I guess. Yeah. I mean, if he does what he thinks he'll do, he'll make more. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to think of it. I thought it was kind of weird. He was talking about literally not playing a week ago for them this year, and then they give him barely any more money and he's all in. So that's bizarre.
Saints are now Super Bowl bound because they signed
Jimmy Graham. Like, what the hell is up with that? I mean, seriously, when I saw that notification, I was like, "What is this? A joke?"
A lot of people said that they were shocked that they in their head read a 1-day contract the first time.
To retire.
Yeah. So anyways, he's out there catching passes in training camp already. I guess he's going to be, just an absolute rock for this offense. One of the weirder signings I've seen as a Saints fan for sure. Like I'm all for it. I mean, they did the same thing. They brought back Mark Ingram way past his prime last year or 2 years ago now too. It's an odd. I get that like New Orleans kind of likes having this like whole like Louisiana cult where they like to, re-sign some of their old players. They like to sign guys that went to LSU or, or Louisiana natives and all that stuff. Hey man, I love it. If we got a full Cajun NFL
Saints legend, bring him back in.
Yep, exactly. Brock Purdy is cleared to practice at training camp, so he's healthy and ready to go. I actually think that's significant because now you have a legitimate quarterback battle between him and Trey Lance. People are saying Trey Lance's improvement from last year to this year is very tangible. And honestly, he didn't get a fair shot at it last year. He, was.
Don't forget about Sam Darnold, man. Don't forget about.
Shut up, Mark.
Hey, I gotta get on a rant though.
Let's hear it.
Because these next 2 points, I'm gonna rant. All right, it's about the players, and I got in an argument with my dad about this the other day. It's about the players sitting out in terms of like argument for they're worth more money. And they want the bigger contract, right? So Nick Bosa and Zach Martin are in the similar situations where they're probably two of the top guys in the league at their respective positions. Undoubtedly, can't debate it. And I'll use Nick Bosa as an example. He's on his rookie deal still. He's about to be on his 5th year of his rookie contract, so he'll make roughly $19 million, which obviously is a lot of money. But he was a high draft pick. He's worth much more than that, and my thought when I was arguing was my dad was saying it'd be crazy for him to sit out and basically eat that $19 million. My argument was if they don't want to pay him the money he thinks he's worth and the rest of the world thinks he's worth, then why the hell would he risk his entire career playing this season for that $19 million when if he sits out, he'll eat that $19 million and he'll sign as a free agent somewhere else in the following year for probably, I don't know, close to $25-30 million a year, probably guaranteed money too in a max contract. That $19 million is forgotten about when you start to make, close to 30 guaranteed for the rest of your career, right? So
100%.
think about if he played on that 19 million on his rookie deal and blew his knee out and was never able to play again, how much money he would be losing.
Look, any of these teams can wake up one day and go, "You're cut. We traded for a replacement. You're not a good fit for us." Or, like you
got to
said,
get your money.
They don't do those things, and you blow out your knee, and you're screwed for the rest of your life, right? 100%. If you got to go get your money, if you feel like that's what you got to do, and there's going to be people willing to pay for it, I guarantee you they get that result in the next week or two.
Yeah, and he argued, he's like, well, look what happened with Le'Veon. I'm like, Le'Veon Bell was a running back. The position itself doesn't have a value. He was towards the end of his prime. He plays a more beat up position. Like, I was like, that's a different situation. Nick Bosa is without question the best in the league at his position, and Zach Martin is a top 2 or 3 guy in the league at his position. So there's no debating that. So you pay them what they think they're worth, or somebody else will. Without question.
Both edge rushers and offensive linemen can play well into their late 20s, early 30s. So I don't know how old Bosa is. I assume he's like 25, 26?
Yeah, he's young.
I mean 4 or 5 year extension is basically risk-free, right? I mean, obviously he can get injured, but the idea of him not playing at the same level, as a 29-year-old as he is as a 25-year-old or something like that, absolutely not. The production's going to be there. I couldn't agree more. Commanders signed Byron Pringle. Ravens signed Andy Isabella, and Eagles worked out.
The Ravens released. Oh, they released.
Isabella. Yeah, my bad. Which I guess makes sense with the makeover in the wide receiver room there. Which, I mean, those are all just, I guess, nothing significant between those 3, I would say.
I mean, between Andy Isabella and N'Keal Harry getting signed or getting worked out with the Eagles, like, those guys have been such big letdowns. When they were drafted so high, there's all this sky's the limit, and they have just not panned out. And unfortunately, that happens more often than not in the NFL. These guys aren't always the star player you think they're going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's like why drafting philosophies over the year has changed too, right? And I think a lot of people just want to draft the players that they know are going to be, safe, fit their culture, fit their coaching philosophy, rather than caring, more about athletic ability and statistics and stuff like that. So, moving on to the actual divisions, right? So we're taking the NFC East, same
East, dare I say?
It's gonna be it's hilarious that 2 years ago this was the worst division in football, and now I would say this is one of the more competitive divisions.
It's a roller coaster division, dude. There's years where like this is literally like who's gonna get in. That we might have a losing record team get in. Shit like that. And then there's years where there's 3 playoff teams that are like earned playoff, opportunity.
Giants, I don't know if we want to say they earned it, but I'll let it slide.
Hey, they won a playoff game.
They did that was the Fraud Bowl.
That was a 13-win team they beat.
It was the Fraud Bowl.
They won a playoff game in the NFL against a 13-win team on the road. You have to give them some credit.
What happened the week after that?
They got blown out by the team that went to the Super Bowl.
It was the Fraud Bowl. Anyways, Eagles, 14-3 division winner, 4-2 in the division. Cowboys 12-5, 4-2 in the division. Giants 9-7-1. Commanders 8-1, which was a bit of a renaissance, honestly. They were looking really brutal. Got rid of Carson Wentz, brought back in Taylor Heineke. He was able to kind of rally that team to being a lot more successful, winning a lot more games. And then for whatever reason, while they're in the playoff hunt, they bring back Carson Wentz. And I think they lost every game with him at the helm. And then they started Sam Howell for whatever reason. So absolute crackhead management over there. I don't know what they were thinking, but it is what it is, I guess. You made your bet and now you got to lay in it. So that's pretty much where and I think film-wise, what are we starting with?
The Giants.
Okay, cool. So do you just want to dig right into it, Mark, or do you have any comments about kind of how last year ended up for these teams?
No, I think we'll just dig right into it. I will say that this division is always more competitive than people think it's going to be. I'd say year in, year out, it's probably one of the most competitive over the last decade. It's just like these teams that people think are going to be bad don't end up being as bad, right? As like people originally think. So that, and then they just all know each other really well, like any other division, right? But it just seems like, I mean, we've had, I think, more ties in this division than any other division in the last like 5 or 6 years. So it's just really competitive football. But yeah, I want to start with, and we talked about Saquon, his contract, right? And that's kind of a good lead into the Giants. They got their guy back, and you'll see why it was very important that they got him back. Jump cut here. Great job by the offensive line. I would say in terms of vision and ability to change direction, I don't think there's anyone better at the running back position in the NFL than Saquon Barkley. Freak athlete, super strong lower half. And the Giants offensive line doesn't get enough credit because they really give this guy a chance to be special. And last year he was absolutely every little bit of special. So
I mean, he was their offensive line and their run game, and their run game, including Daniel Jones, honestly, was their entire offense last year.
Yeah.
It's especially a running joke for Lions fans that this team does not have wide receivers. Traded away probably their only competent one. And then obviously Galladay was I guess Stafford was the one that was getting the most out of Galladay in that situation because he did absolutely nothing for the Giants in the 3 years that he was with them. So
and John, I want to break down this play just a little more details for some of the people. So you want to pause it just right after they snap the ball.
Yep.
So as you'll see, you got the center and the guard, and then the backside guard and the tackle. They call this like it's a zone scheme. It's like a duo scheme where they're going to double, and then they're going to double to both linebackers. So you'll see they get movement on both the defensive tackles here, and then the center comes off to number 51, and then the tackle is able to come off to 41. So they actually get blocks on both linebackers and a safety on the insert from Sterling Shepard. So they actually have everyone blocked here except for the front was the backside safety, but ended up being the play side safety because he made a jump cut to the backside. But there's just no chance in space this guy's going to make a play.
I mean, that hole is like
every single block is made.
NFL.
Yeah, every block is made, and then you give your best player a chance with an open field to just need to get 4 yards to score. So outstanding job. And I love that play concept, but the Giants execute it. And listen, if you're going to have Daniel Jones and they paid him, like everyone knows Daniel Jones is not going to thrive just on his own. He needs something that can take the pressure off him. And I can't think of anyone better than a running back like Saquon Barkley. So,
yeah. And again, like, I don't want to discredit Daniel Jones's running ability either. I actually think it's wild how much of a dual threat he can actually be, especially considering the fact that, their receiving core was not very much of a threat. And then, I go back and forth about, was he worth the money that they signed him? I mean, he's getting paid, top 10 in the NFL now at this point with that contract. I think he's a very mid-tier quarterback personally. Well, the thing is and it's the same conversation that Joseph Engros brought up a couple weeks ago. Like, the Giants were able to win with him last year. They know what they're getting out of him. And he's actually been pretty consistent in his play over the years. It's just the team around him hasn't been great. So,
I mean, in the NFL, it's hard to find your franchise quarterback. I mean, there's so many teams that are each year changing who their quarterback is. When you have a guy that you can win with, like a Goff, like a Daniel Jones, you kind of have to just deal with it and then build around it, right? Because if they let him go and then they restart that process, who knows who would have been playing quarterback for the Giants next year?
Right.
I mean, they did win 2 Super Bowls with Eli Manning.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. And it's funny because I don't know. I feel like Daniel Jones actually looks a lot like Eli Manning.
Totally. He looks more like Eli Manning than Peyton does.
I think you're right about that.
And plays more like Eli. And then Eli and Danny Dimes play more similar than Peyton. Peyton's one of the best ever.
He is one of the most average faces I think I've ever seen, for sure. Like, It's just it's not given a whole lot in any direction, really. It's just, it's kind of like an NPC.
This is more of just a stat, John. If you want to read this stat on this, talking again just about Saquon and his ability.
So against 8 defenders, sorry, I forgot that we're a podcast that can potentially be audio only. I was like, they can read it. Against 8 defenders in the box, Barkley gained 31 rushing yards over expected on his 36-yard TD run. Barkley currently leads the NFL in rushing yards over expected this season, surpassing Nick Chubb. I guess
So
should
so
we
just
like
an
dial up
idea.
Joey DeCreasy though and like figure out what expected
So-
yards?
So
how
I
they
can
calculate
I
that?
can explain it surprisingly. So basically, when you load the box, right, a man box, you expect to get less yards because there's more defenders in the box, right? So
Sure.
they run the stats here and what on average you'll get with an 8-man box with certain run plays, and basically Saquon led the league in overachieving and exceeding the expectations when the box is loaded, right? Because they see a loaded box because again, people don't fear Daniel Jones.
So is that expectation calculated based off of average then though? Like
I think it's
like
based
what's-
off of
Okay.
average against those looks with each play. So and then
Got
they
it.
run that through, and obviously you see who's second, Nick Chubb. And what's the common thing between Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley? Gigantic thighs, get gigantic legs, strong running backs that
Really
break
good
a
offensive
shit ton
line,
of
too.
tackles and a good offensive line. But I mean, listen, 8-man box, you're going to have to go through some tackles to get extra yards
Right.
because you have, that's a heavy box. And this just kind of shows breaks a tackle there, 2 tackles there, cuts back, outruns a guy, and
Breaks a
gets
tackle
the end zone.
there,
So that's 4 or 5 guys that were not blocked at the moment of contact that he had to make
that he was
something
able
happen
to
on.
truck through. Yeah, which is very impressive. Okay, so this is a Daniel Jones critique.
Yeah.
One, and then I think you have one that
I give him
based
love
on
and I give him
things.
hate, right? I'm not going to only hate on him because he has shown plenty of good. He's also shown a lot of bad, and that's my huge thing is that if you're going to pay someone like that, you got to see a hell of a lot more good than bad. I mean, this is lazy with his body when he throws this. It's almost like he's scared to get hit because he is about to take contact, and it's dumb because you're on the 3-yard line going in to score. You cannot not get points here. You just can't do it. Unforced errors from the quarterback position on the goal line. Like this is just inexcusable. This kind of thing he has shown time and time again loses you
really
games.
bad.
Really,
Yeah.
really bad. You cannot do it. You have a running back like Saquon that you could give the ball to 4 times. You have Daniel Jones' ability to run the ball that you could utilize down there. God, it just
Worst
frustrates
case
me.
scenario, you don't turn it over, and at least you get 3 points out of the situation.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean,
worst
no,
case
absolutely.
scenario.
Number one thing you cannot do down there is turn the ball over. That's number one rule because that's you go all the way down to the 2-yard line and you get 0 out of it.
And by the way, we're not cherry picking here. Like he had a lot of these. I mean, I remember the Lions game, he made a bunch of boneheaded decisions. I mean, he threw a ball straight into Aiden Hutchinson's lap, basically. And he's been known to do this from time to time. And again, his receiving core doesn't give him much. I get that. That's a 100% Daniel Jones mistake there, though.
No, that's on nobody but him. That's on nobody but him. Yeah. And then on the other hand, he makes plays like this, which this is about as good of a play as you can make as a quarterback in this league. Getting hit, falling backwards, and getting the ball right on the money to Darius Slayton. And I mean, this is look, the pressure comes. Saquon
and the pressure's
Saquon
coming from up the middle too.
Exactly, that's a stunt where
Yeah.
they come from the outside in. Saquon picks up the edge rather than the pressure right in his face. And it's on Daniel Jones to get the ball out. He's accountable for that last guy. They blitzed more than they can block. That's why this guy was open, is because they brought pressure and they left those guys in the secondary kind of on their own. But the fact that he hung in here, bought himself a little time falling away, and still got the ball there off his back foot, this accurate, is impressive. I mean, that is, worth the money they gave him. If he makes plays like that, and that's what the Giants see in practice, and maybe that's what they see more of than the average fan, and that's why maybe he got paid. I don't know, right? We'll see this year, because if he doesn't do that consistently, and then this also just shows his passing rating on 20+ yard throws. Obviously, Tua was the king of it this
transition right
year.
here too, with Hurts also being
right. But you see Daniel Jones with the receiving. You got to understand, John. Daniel Jones was second in the NFL with passing rating with 20-yard or more throws. And who was his receivers? Can you name 3? Can you name 2?
Yeah. You got Slayton.
You know what I mean?
About it.
Yeah. Slayton, Sterling Shepard was out. You got our boy Khalil Pimpleton on the practice squad. I'm hoping he gets a chance to show what he can do. We've had him on the show.
In the middle of it right now, proving his worth.
Yeah, in the middle of it right now. But you can't name any. They did get Darren Waller from Vegas.
It's exciting.
So that's big. So we'll see what they do with that. But again, what he did last year with not many receivers, impressive. And then you see who's after that: Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and then Jalen Hurts as we transition into the Philly. But and then one last thing to their D line. I know I'll say this: we talk about their all we want. I'm gonna say something here, John. I think the Giants have the best D line overall in the NFL.
Wild to think about.
It is wild to think about, but you have Thibodeau. They have great interior defensive linemen that are quick as shit, powerful as shit, and they work well together. Like they draw up some awesome stunts. Here's Thibodeau coming off the edge. Great. I mean, he's there in. I mean, those are game-changing plays, dude, that he consistently makes. I mean that. But look at their interior D linemen. I mean, you watch this, you see their hand fighting skills. I mean, they get pressure.
That's impressive.
Fast.
That's very, very impressive.
And because they're able to get pressure rushing 3 or 4 consistently, they can play it safer on the secondary and makes it really hard for quarterbacks to succeed against this defense.
My only pause to this selection, honestly, Mark, is that the Commanders' offensive line kind of stinks.
Yeah, I mean, but look at some of the moves.
They're eating.
Look at some of the moves they're doing, dude.
They're eating on this offensive line, that's for sure. So, holy shit, dude. I mean, the interior pass rush, I think, is the biggest part of that. We'll see how Thibodeau develops. I think he's a little bit overrated. I'm happy that the Lions with Hutchinson over him, honestly. But he did have some moments last year, and I think again, I mean, it's not an easy position to be really, really good at your rookie year. So I'm very curious to see how he performs this coming year.
Yeah, I can anticipate him being much better as he gets older in this league and has more experience. But yeah, I mean, damn, this D line, I'm telling you, is one of the more underrated units in football. So that's something to look out for as well.
Okay, sorry, we're actually doing Cowboys first. My bad.
We'll save Philly, dude. Listen, they had their Super Bowl run. There's plenty of Philly to talk about, but hey, who doesn't want to talk about the Cowboys? That's everyone's favorite thing to talk about.
Everybody's favorite
thing. I mean, you're a Texas native now, John.
Yep, and you will not catch me rooting for the Cowboys inside of Jerry World at any point. I probably will end up in Jerry World quite a few times this season, over in Houston potentially too. But I will be rooting against the Cowboys no matter who it is that they're hosting. I really can't think of any team I'd be rooting in favor of if I went to a game, honestly. So it's, I think I hate them more than any other team in the NFL now that I think about it. Commanders are a close second, though. So I actually
and we'll talk about both those teams in this episode. John's favorite episode to do. He gets to talk about 2 of his favorite teams.
So look, point blank with this quote is that Dak recognizes he had a lot of interceptions last year, and to be fair to him, because I've brought this up many times, how bad his interception problem was. A lot of them weren't his fault. I do appreciate the words they had to say about it. I think that a lot of it is like, hey, taking responsibility, and we're not going to repeat that next year. As a competitor, I really appreciate that. That being said,
pointing out that shit stinks is cool too. Like, obviously, you threw a ton of interceptions, and you were no good last year. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
It's
like
not
taking responsibility for it.
Yeah, I respect it too, John. But I respect Dak. I like Dak as a person, as a player. Just sucks that he's the quarterback for the Cowboys of all teams. But
this part here though,
if he throws more than 10 picks, you don't think this quote's gonna absolutely crush him?
Yeah, I mean, I might even be willing to hit the money line on that.
Well, listen, here's the thing. In previous seasons, he threw 10 interceptions, 4 picks, 11 picks, 8 picks, and 13 picks. Right, so he's not been around that 10 number a ton. Now there was some injuries and stuff, so he missed some games, but I think he's more than capable of not throwing 10 interceptions or throwing less than 10. But
he's done them every other season, basically. Every other season, he throws more than 10. So,
well, I'll say this too, John, and we'll look at the videos of some of these. And there's going to be plenty of interceptions that are not his fault, and this first one is an example of that. The receiver tips this ball. He tried to throw in tight coverage, but the receiver should have either made a play or should have been incomplete. Again, dropped off CD Lamb's hand. And that's another interception. A few of these are going to be. This one's probably the worst one. That counts as an interception. I mean, that counts as an interception. That lost them the game against Jacksonville. That's a damn bad
that
one
one
too.
is
So like
brutal,
again,
too.
like there's when
Embarrassing.
you actually watch the film, you'll see that it's never as bad or as good as it actually seems. Now this, I will say there are plenty in this clip that are him. This one is on him. Just terrible. Right into coverage. The guy was standing there the entire time. Off his back foot, lazy throw here into coverage. Bad. That's on Dak. We saw this one already. This was on the receiver. This one I think is also on the receiver. Receiver fell down. Stephon Gilmore, one of the best at doing that in the league. And then this one was on the receiver. So there's plenty that were on him, but there's plenty that were on the receivers. And here's a different angle of that really bad one. I mean, this is I think in overtime.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That was to win the game for Jacksonville. So you can look at it however you want to, but there was plenty that I would say
that was totally his fault.
Yeah, the 49ers game was terrible.
Yeah.
There's plenty on him and there's plenty not on him. And I think that if he cleans up the ones that are on him, he'll be okay.
Right. And honestly, the culprit of a lot of those, and this is CeeDee Lamb's problem, and this video is going to give props to him for how good he runs routes. He's got some hands issues sometimes. He's got a lot of bad drops and a lot of bobbles that ended up in interceptions last season. And so it's something to watch because he's a stud receiver. He's very good.
And he'll make some incredible catches as well. He's just got to be more consistent. This guy, again, fantasy preview, get this guy in the first round because he's absolutely electric. He's a playmaker. He's a home run hitter. I think he's one of the best route runners in football. And now that there's other receivers on the Cowboys besides him, he won't get as much tight coverage, right? You have Brandon Cooks that will help take the top off defense, and he'll play underneath. He's so sudden, dude, and he's just like the beauty. Like if I could just break down his routes, just his film for like 3 minutes,
slow it down for you.
Yeah, I'll do it in like a short. Yeah, so the one I really want to break down is. I'll show it here in a second. You can see the change of direction, right? The suddenness, the deception, right here, really takes the extra time to sell it. That's on my former teammate too, Sean Murphy Bunting. Right here, this burst, and then you see the hand's going to swipe as he's stacking him. That receiver has no chance of recovering because of that stack, and he knows it. He knows it the second that he did it. As you wipe that hand back, they call it a wipe technique. Mm-hmm. And as you wipe that hand back to get the guy's hand off of you, as you stack him, you give him no chance to catch up, right? Because you're on top.
Right.
And CeeDee's faster than most guys he's going to go against as well. That was just taunting flat out. But he also has, again, some of the best balance and footwork. He does make some of the craziest catches I've ever seen, like that one. But yeah, you're right. He needs to clean up the consistency. He needs to catch every ball.
I mean, he's a very clear wide receiver one for them. Don't get me wrong. I was not trying to throw too much shade on his name, but I also, again, like, bobbled passes was a problem and drops was a problem for him too. And so it's good to keep that in mind. And I think, it kind of goes with the Cowboys brand of like, they play super hot. When they're hot, they're on fire. They're a lot of the times they kind of remind me of the Bills, where it's like, man, like if they're steamrolling, like you are about to get knocked the frick out, right? And I think that's why they have such great, regular season win totals and things like that. But they also are prone to making some of the most embarrassing mistakes I've ever seen in the NFL, especially in the postseason, right? And I mean, back-to-back years, they ended their seasons on plays that were kind of hilarious. One, not knowing how to stop a clock on time. And then obviously the other, Zeke as center.
Yeah, not ideal. But hey, Zeke asked out of town. Okay, they got rid of him.
And they got Tony Pollard.
They got Tony Pollard, who honestly has been better for 2 years as well. You see, he's just more explosive. And in terms of what they do in their running scheme, like Zeke was good when he was faster and more explosive. And the second that he put on a little bit of weight and was more of a power back, he was only good in short yardage. Tony Pollard is a better every down back. He catches the ball better out of the backfield. He has the big play ability more than Zeke. Like this was a long time coming, and the Cowboys did the right thing and getting rid of Zeke and keeping Pollard, and I think he's going to have a huge year. Again, fantasy preview. We'll get into it next week. I think he could be huge in fantasy football. This is even better angle of the same play.
Same play.
You get an idea. Do you know how explosive you have to be to break those 2 tackles? By the way, the running back here, Bobby Wagner, does his job, forces it back inside, and there's just no one there.
Right.
That's just it's tough. It's tough to make an open field tackle on somebody that is that explosive.
Monster. Okay,
Finally,
going from
Philly.
Yeah, this to Philly. My bad for the false alarm on that. And look, one thing that I think Philly in back-to-back years has pulled off is somehow in the draft they trade for somebody that they need, who's a stud. And look, I've had a lot of criticisms of Swift over the years. Last year I was pretty vocal about the fact that, no pun intended, about the fact that I really didn't think he was a good fit for the Lions offense. With that being said, he has a lot of God-given talents, and I think with this offensive line, with this offense, with a mobile quarterback, he's going to be deadly with them.
It's such a perfect fit, dude.
And then in the draft, man, just what they've been able to do with their defensive line the past 2 years too is absolutely insane.
Do you think there's any team that's had a better off season each of the last 2 years than them? I mean,
no. I think they've had the best.
AJ Brown. They drafted really well. Getting Devontae Smith a few years ago. This year's draft was just dominant. I mean, they just stole so many guys that no one thought they'd get.
They basically have all of Georgia's national championship front seven as their front seven. I mean, how
does that even happen? How do you?
I don't know. I don't know how.
I mean, they actually do have like 4 or 5 of the top guys from that front seven on their team.
That's what I'm
saying. Not to mention DeAndre Swift is a former Georgia running back. You have Hurts as a former Alabama quarterback.
They like Bama, they like Georgia, and I mean, how could you not, right? This is there we go. For whatever reason, my internet's
why I'm so high on Swift in Philly too is the Lions used him. I think they actually underused him, and there was times where it was because of availability and injuries and stuff like that. But in terms of their scheme, like John said, with a mobile quarterback and with a dominant offensive line, that's what Swift thrived in college. The 1 year in Detroit where he got a great offensive line, when he was healthy, he thrived. And he's great out of the backfield in the passing game. So Jalen Hurts has the threat to run, which we're going to see plenty of film on in a second. You add someone like this into that backfield rotation, you just can reload at running back. So even if one of these guys does go down to injury or misses a couple games, they have other guys that can step in and do just
They're very
as good.
deep there. Yeah.
Very deep there.
And
for whatever
reason, this video won't load, so my bad. But anyway, sorry, continue your thought.
Well, the whole thing, and like you said, John, Jalen Hurts' ability to run the ball was, huge for them, especially down the red zone, because as linebackers and defensive ends, you can't just commit all of your attention to the running back when there's a mesh, because he'll pull that thing and he'll make you pay when he does. And we have plenty of clips here I'll show that I don't know what you do, because you can't take both away. If you focus more on Jalen Hurts, he'll give the ball to guys like DeAndre Swift. And if you take Swift away, Hurts will make you pay.
Yep. And not to mention, like you said, I mean, their receiving core is disgusting.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt either. And then if you try to load the box and take them both away, they'll just throw to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So Jalen Carter, we mentioned the Georgia Bulldogs, we mentioned the draft. Look at the quick twitch of someone this big. It's pretty ridiculous.
I am forever going to stay mad that we didn't draft this dude. I'm not going to lie.
I think so too.
I think that he's going to pan out just fine in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. I'm not upset at all with who we went with in the draft as a Lions fan, but this dude has very, very special ability to rush from the interior. It's a very hard thing to do, and he was one of the best at it in college. And I do think
he was the best overall player in the draft. He was there when the Lions pick was up. And
I mean, him and Jordan Davis combined, it's going to be.
I get there's issues and stuff with him off the field, but when that gets squared away and he's able to just play and not have to worry about that anymore, this guy's a freak of nature, man. I mean, the Lions have missed on some players before, like Odell Beckham Jr. was available. We didn't draft him, and that's always going to pain me.
It's going to happen. I mean, but that's the thing, though, is Holmes has built this team so well, and he has a philosophy and he sticks with it, and it hasn't bit him yet. I'm not going to be mad about it, but Carter's going to be a freaking good player, assuming he can stay out of trouble, which I think it's more likely than not that he'll stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
Again, he's reunited with a lot of his classmates. He's obviously, in an NFL's got a lot of structure to it to kind of keep a lot of guys out of trouble, too. They do crazy amount of trainings and stuff like that. I mean, if push comes to shove, they can literally hire basically a freaking life coach babysitter, which there's more NFL players out there than probably they'd like to admit that do shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's their pass rush is going to be insane. Their offensive line is basically locked and loaded to come back for another year, obviously. And then on top of it, you got guys like
I really think Devontae Smith is the most underrated receiver in the NFL. He gets covered up because of AJ Brown, and there's all this stuff. Like he, in terms of a route runner and in terms of catching everything that he touches, he's just special, man. Like he's such a technician. Like he's so technically sound at the position. And he works on his craft, and he's an Alabama product. And there's just been so many guys that have come out of there that just hop right in the NFL and thrive.
He's very physical and scrappy for his size.
For his size. I mean, he's skinny as heck. And he catches everything he touches. He's just so good in and out of his breaks. And he's just a master at like making you think he's going to do one thing and he does another. And then but he's got the ability to catch everything. So you'll see here, this is kind of slowed down. So if you want to pause it kind of as these notes pop up, John, I can explain what they mean. This is a really good breakdown of a climb over route. So a lot of times he'll leak inside here, and the defensive back will just continue to squeeze it because there's no threat of him going back outside. But because look at his eyes here, look at his body angle, look what that defensive back's going to do. He thinks he's going to go out. See the hesitation on the defensive back? Mm-hmm. He has to respect the fact that now he has a two-way go, and then everything looks like he might break back out, and then he sticks and he leaves him with again the eyes, the body shape, and now he's going to go back inside. That separation that he just created increases the probability of a completion, makes the quarterback's life easier, makes the catch easier, and then gives him a chance to score after the catch. And then this is a great throw by Jalen Hurts.
And would you say, Mark, like it's not just as much like the cleanliness of the routes themselves from like a footwork, speed, placement perspective, but then how well your eyes actually sell where you're going.
Dude, everything. Going. Listen, the best salesmen in the world, the best liars in the world, receivers, because they have to make everything look like it's something that it isn't, because that's the best way to get open. That's why that's why I always think like the speed and stuff, natural speed is a little bit overrated, because your ability to just use your body, your head, right? Like the eyes lie. Defensive backs know this, right? But it's really hard not to respect when he's looking straight forward. Like, I don't know if he's going to go in or out. I have to be ready for both, because if he goes out, I'm screwed too. So he gives himself a two-way go here. He probably wins this route no matter if he goes in or out. But on this route specifically, he has an in, and he just freezes that defender and creates much more separation than normal.
And then Hurts, who can, squat like 600 pounds and has a cannon of an arm, I think a very underrated arm, and then also, has the ability to do QB sneaks, has the ability to use his legs. The fact that you have this dual threat quarterback complemented by the offensive line with a really freaking good receiving core and depth at running backs. I mean, their offense is
and a tight end.
And a good tight end.
Dallas Goedert's a great blocker. He's a great receiving tight end. Like Jalen Hurts, this is what I'm talking about in the terms of if you're going to take away the running back because he's having a day, Jalen Hurts will make you pay because of the zone read and the read option plays that they run so much of in the RPOs. And I don't know. It's really, really hard to take away everything if they read it correctly. And if they just get a couple blocks in space, he can hit a home run and score on any given play. And I just feel bad for defenses nowadays. Honestly, with players like this at quarterback, I just don't know in this scheme what you do to stop them. I mean, no one stopped them. The Chiefs didn't stop them. They just scored more than them.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
that was a shootout back and forth. And I mean, We were like, whoever has the ball last is going to win this game. You knew
He
it in
was
the first quarter.
he was so unstoppable with the QB sneaks that like
That too.
there was legitimate calls that like, hey, we need to revise how we potentially go about allowing this to happen. I mean, when you're kicking ass so much and you're so impossible to stop on a play that they actually talk about like banning or changing the way that the play is allowed to be executed, you're doing something to defenses last year that not a whole lot of guys can do. So yeah,
and that's
very
frustrating
impressive.
as hell, John, because you get the
Right.
because they're basically just all they have to do is get like 8 yards instead of 10 because they know they can just do that quarterback sneak anytime they're close. Look at this tight window that he completes this ball, and I was amazed at this throw because listen, Jalen Hurts is not known for throws like this. He's more like that's a tight window. He's more known for like the deep ball, wide open receiver. Very, very heavy box because of their running, so it's easier to throw the ball. And so he a lot of times doesn't get the credit he deserves on the accuracy of some of these, but these are tight window throws.
Right.
That he's picking apart this defense.
That my computer just loves playing right now for whatever reason. My bad, everybody. But I mean, I think like the points made, like this offense is so versatile. They have so many studs everywhere on it. It is very, very difficult to do.
And I think because of that, John, and obviously their defense is good too. Now we've broken down this play before. I'm going to pause it real quick.
Yep,
we did a full breakdown on this. The whole idea is, again, with the eyes of where Jalen Hurts is at. He's staring right at Fred Warner, who's on the backside. The guy doesn't move at all because he has to respect the fact that Jalen Hurts could pull it. And then you watch, obviously, how they execute the offensive line.
Just watch the offensive line here. I mean,
they dominate, and the linebackers can't go make a play on the running back because of the threat of Jalen Hurts. That fear, he doesn't have to do anything on this play except read it. And just because of who he is and what he's done in the past as a runner, makes this running back's life easy. And now you have to imagine that that's going to be DeAndre Swift.
Yeah. And again, like Warner's one of the best linebackers in the league. I mean, by the time that he identifies what's going on with this play,
I mean, he has to stay backside because of, and Greenlaw's on it just by himself here. But look at the push they get, and then Kelsey's athleticism to get on a second level linebacker after kicking the tackle's ass. And they just do this all game long. And then when you try to put more guys in the box to make it tougher on them, they just do play action, and he throws to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, who are in single coverage because of it. This play it's against your team, John. I'm sorry, but this is probably the best play I've seen Jalen Hurts make as a runner. Because you think he's a power guy, and then you see how stupid his change of direction is. This is a guy who squats. This is a guy who squats 600 pounds. This is a guy who runs people over, breaks tackles. But when you stop on a dime like that and make it. Look at this guy. He's unblocked, and he makes him fall down, and the guy doesn't even touch him. In the NFL, to do that to another grown man, like that doesn't happen often. That's Lamar Jackson-esque.
100%. And arguably a better arm talent too. And then look, it seems like there's one team in every division where there is so much changeover that we kind of struggle to actually show a ton of film. But I'll say this, right? Commanders have a lot to be optimistic about and a lot to be worried about. They obviously have a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. A lot of questions around that. Obviously, a lot of success at KC. Was that him or Andy Reid?
Can he get it done without Andy Reid?
That's the big question that everybody is asking. That could be a wonderful move by the Commanders. It could be a really bad one. Quarterback, obviously, basically cleared house on the entire thing. Sam Howell's their starting quarterback. We'll see how that pans out. I mean, them getting rid of Heineke, I thought was just absolutely boneheaded move.
I liked Heineke. Yeah.
I did too. Obviously wasn't the most talented quarterback, but got wins, which is what you're in this league to do.
And the team played for him.
What I mean? Exactly, which goes a really long way in this league, as we've seen time and time again. Ron Rivera, a lot of question marks around him as a coach. He's a hard ass. Does that kind of coaching style really resonate with players? Defense first, which is another big thing. And then got rid of your ownership, which is awesome, but it's going to take time for, ownership and management to start kind of trickling down the way that you want to see. So a lot of changes in the air for the Commanders. It's going to look like a very different team these next few years. Not to mention, talk about change. This team might have a fourth name change in a 5-year span. They were once the Redskins.
John,
That
I'm
was
going to
kind of
put you on the
racist.
spot
Gotta
here.
call it the football team.
If you can pick one team name for Washington, okay, just like the first one that comes to your mind, you're the new owner. You
Yeah.
get to change the team name. What are you doing it?
So when the Redskins became the football team, which by the way, the football team was freaking hilarious. Like it was
So stupid,
everything
dude.
about DC. Somebody threw out the idea of the Red Tails, right? Which was like a dogfighter, like World War I style plane. So you're still kind of getting like the Washington military vibes, but it's like not as in your face as Commanders is, which is shortened to Commies, which is probably the opposite direction they're trying to go with that franchise name. I thought they're trying to be like, America and freedom and shit, but they're nicknamed the Commies. So I thought Red Tails was pretty good, but I don't know if anybody's going to bite on that. We'll see what happens. So, look, they got a decent color scheme to work with. Like, they should be able to come up with something. They're in DC. Like, there's a lot that they can pull from to kind of come up with a brand.
There's a lot of inspiration. I mean,
yeah, it's rough. But anyway, so yeah, lots of change going on the offensive side of the ball, on the coaching side of the ball, and on the ownership side. And then defensively, you might move off of Chase Young, right? They're not giving him a 5-year deal. He might get traded before the season starts, or he might play the rest of the season and then go somewhere else as a free agent. I don't know how Commanders fans feel about that. And then on top of it, you have, a pretty good secondary. And I guess that's like, probably the only credit I can really give this team right now. And that's probably
a star receiver and a star receiver
in Scary Terry. So we got 2 plays from him running routes. Highly underrated player, I think, because he plays for a shit team. But he is
the production
receiver.
He's had with the quarterback turnover that he's had and just like being on a shitty team, like the fact that he still puts up the numbers he does and year in, year out is one of the most feared receivers for DBs to go against. Like, you got to respect that, because this guy on any team with a functional quarterback and, a chance. Could you imagine this guy with like a guy like Jared Goff for a few years where he can build chemistry with him, or a guy like Mahomes or Hurts, or, anyone that's just think about this guy with Justin Herbert. Yeah. I mean, like, he would thrive in any of these other systems. He just doesn't have a consistent quarterback. He's at the bottom of the screen here, John. And so you'll see him. He's the guy that doesn't go in motion, so he's right there. He's going to do a quick snag route in and out, but that's against Jair Alexander, one of the best corners in football. And
honestly, I mean, this is a touchdown if the pass is actually like quick too, because he has to sit there and wait. There's no help to him. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. Honestly, is what it is.
And it's the little details too, right? This is Heineke too. I mean, they're going to miss him in Washington, I think. But they had a lead here. The innate just instinct to knock out of bounds and force Green Bay to have to use a timeout here. That's the difference between wins and losses, man. So like, he easily could have just went out of bounds like most guys would in the pros. He fights it, gets the first down, gets the extra yards, and gets down in bounds to keep the clock going. Like that, he's a smart player too. So, he's trying to push him out of bounds. Like, Jair Alexander wanted to give him the sideline because they stopped the clock that way, and he just fought it. So on top of a beautiful route and getting these extra yards, like the strength to stay in bounds.
Yeah.
So it's the little things that can make or break a game. But yeah, Scary Terry is one of the best in the league, and I would love to see him just get traded maybe, or have a quarterback come to Washington that can give him what he needs.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way, but if they don't have the quarterback situation figured out by the time that his contract is up, I think he's going to be ass out for sure.
And I think someone would pay a pretty good amount of money to get him.
100%. All right, so win totals over under. Washington Commanders 6.5. That's tough because it's so low, but like, that's under. Right there. I'm gonna go under too.
Clear under. I think that they might be the worst team in the NFL.
They're gonna be rough. I don't know if worst team. I think the Cardinals are gonna take that.
They're starting Sam Howell at quarterback.
Yeah,
and they play in a tough division.
It's gonna be.
They have a tough schedule. I think they're going under that for sure.
Giants 7.5. I'm gonna say they're gonna have more continuity than that. I think they're probably like an 8-9 win team, so I'm gonna go over for the Giants.
I'm gonna go under for the Giants as well. They won somehow, 9 games in the regular season last year, and a lot of them were very, very close games. They had a more favorable schedule last year. And they're one of those few teams that I think actually got worse in the offseason. They lost some guys, and you know, again, their schedule gets tougher, and they're about the same skill level as a team. And again, they won a lot of those close games. That's hard to do 2 years in a row. So I'm going to go under here.
Okay. Cowboys I struggle with because of the fact that, one, I hate them, but two, they've always kind of been like a 11, 12 win team in the regular season. I don't know. They got better as far as who their personnel is, but I think losing their OC is going to hurt a lot. I really don't know how good of graces McCarthy's in with Jerry Jones right now. So I'm going to go under for the Cowboys. Actually, I probably think they're an 8 or 9 win team as well.
I'm going to go over, and it pains me, but I'm going to go over just because I think that their defense will be
very
tough
good
again this year, and
Very
they create
good.
turnovers. And like I said, I do think that Dak will be much better this year. I think he's really been working on improving, not turning the ball over. He has more help at the receiver position. Tony Pollard is like the guy, so their offensive run game is going to look different. I think they'll run Dak a little bit more this year because they're not worried about him re-injuring that ankle. So I think that they'll be better on both O and D. Their schedule is tougher than it was last year, but I do think they get 10 or 11 wins. So I'll go over for Dallas.
Okay. And then Philly, 11.5 wins. Man, as long as you're the Eagles and you're playing in the NFC, I think that you're probably a 12-plus win team just based off of the fact of like, who's really going to challenge your offense in the NFC? There's not a whole lot of guys. Defense is really damn good too. I think that they're probably due for a season that looks a lot like last season.
Well, they win 15 games regular season last year.
14, yeah.
14. So, yeah, man. I mean, look, they lose their OC, they lose their DC, but they just reload in the draft and they just bring in all these guys and somehow it seems like they're going to have an even better running game than they had last year. Their D line is all returning.
Yep.
They cleaned up their secondary. The guys that they did lose, they replaced. It just seems like they're going to reload. And like you said, the NFC is, for the Eagles, they match up really well with like every team they play because they run the ball better and because they have the ability to play strong defense as well. You can run the ball and you can play defense. Like you're going to win most games in the NFC.
Yeah, it's and again, if it was the AFC, maybe it's a different take, but they have obviously being in the NFC, they have an NFC heavy schedule, and I think they're going to beat up on their division again. And I think nobody else in the NFC is really going to challenge them, barring 49ers and Lions. So I'm not sure if they play those.
And the recipe clearly in the NFC the last few years, if you look at like what San Francisco's done, you looked at what Philly did. The recipe for the NFC the last few years has been running the ball and playing defense. And I just don't think anyone does that better than them in the NFC. You could argue San Francisco, maybe Detroit this year. There's some teams that have, shown that they can do that. And those are the teams that are improving each year. And Philly just does it better than everybody else. Totally. And there's no secret as to why they were in the Super Bowl last year. There's no secret to why they're the favorite to go back to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. So to me, I think the division is theirs. And I think they're a heavy favorite to win the NFC as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think, based off of our conversations, it's like it's Lions, it's Eagles, and it's 49ers.
And Seahawks. Don't forget the Seahawks.
Okay, Seahawks, sure. I'll give that to you too. I mean, that takes away from my 49ers take, but because there can only be one team that wins the division. But
Seattle is.
And NFC South is going to suck. So just, but anyways, thank you everybody for tuning in. We actually were able to keep this on a relatively quick clip time-wise, which I'm surprised about. So I'll take this time to remind everybody in the description, there is a link to our brand new Discord. If you're a fan of the content, you should click it. You should join it. You should hang out with us, start some conversations. There's threads for every division. All of that good stuff. So make sure you're checking that out. Additionally, next week, huge fantasy football episode. Mark and I did our due diligence last year. It paid off. We both won our leagues. I think a lot of our takes aged very, very well from last year, and hopefully this year is more of the same. So Mark and I are going to come very well prepared. We're going to have a live stream to follow that, where we're going to do a mock draft, fantasy mock draft as well. Make sure you're checking that out, and keep an eye out for a merch drop before the season starts.
If you guys play fantasy football, you're gonna want to check out next week's episode. I really do. It's gonna be in depth. We're gonna have film breakdown. We're gonna rank players at each position. We're gonna compare players directly. John and I are gonna debate who goes higher, who we would take higher. And again, you're talking, two guys that won their leagues last year respectively, who have always been kind of up in the top of their fantasy leagues. We've done fantasy football for 10 years now, John? I mean,
seventh grade, you and I were the co-commissioners, and I won that year too. I remember.
Yeah.
So,
hey, just notice we both were kind of like a Philly green today. So is that just a preview that the Eagles are winning this division for sure, or what? Because that wasn't planned.
And not only that, where's the Kelly Green throwback unis at, Philly? Come on, everybody wants them.
I think they are bringing them back.
Did they? I don't think they've announced them officially.
No,
yet,
they're bringing them back.
Okay, I'm excited to see it. I'm hoping. Hoping to see them. When's the
drop?
drop?
They already dropped them, John. I think they're.
I don't think you're right. I think they said they're gonna do them. I don't think they've actually dropped them. I could be wrong.
They haven't said when they're gonna use them.
Not only when they're gonna use them, we actually don't know what they look like. Which obviously.
No, I've seen the picture of them.
Maybe I'm wrong. It could have been an edit though, so I don't know. We're not trying to spread too much misinformation on this program. We know it's a problem here, so
they're saying that they are returning this season.
Okay, show me the mock-up right now.
They haven't posted the official.
Oh, so exactly what I just said.
Yeah, but you said that they weren't doing it. They are bringing it back.
No, I said that people want to see them, and we haven't seen them yet.
We're gonna see them.
Thanks. I know that. Also, Lions dropping their highly coveted Inside the Den tomorrow, or as this
Hard Knocks is in 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks. Yep. I think it's August 6th, August 8th, something like that. So, hey, we're back. Bottom line,
football's
we are back.
Holy shit. We made it.
Let's fucking go. All right.
Year 2.
Catch you guys later. Join our Discord. Check you next week. Peace.
See you guys.